Thanks for having me on, Grant.
What do you think? Does Tony Stewart, I mean, the big question is, did he do this on purpose? If he did it on purpose, I would imagine he has all kinds of problems ahead of him.
His problems begin not only if he did it on purpose, but if he did it sort of not intending to actually cause harm, intentionally swerved and intentionally gunned his car on purpose. That could be enough to get him criminal negligence.
And is that what it would amount to here, is criminal negligence, if he was just trying to scare him, as many people have said he was trying to do?
Exactly. It absolutely would. We call that a homicide charge, so it's not like a murder, but it's still pretty serious. You know, it can have jail time associated with it and large fines, and it's not something to be sniffed out. So the fact that he was acting recklessly, essentially, is really what they'd hang him on if they went after him for that.
Does he have any protections because this was a sanctioned professional sporting event?
He could. The real question is going to be what normally goes on when someone spins out like Ward did. If it normally the guy comes out and normally everybody still keeps going, and normally people try to kick mud up or scare the other guys, if that's the community standard, he can actually use those to say, look, I was playing the game. It's the same thing as, guys punching in hockey. It's a normal part of hockey that guys punch each other when a fight breaks out. So he'd basically be able to come under the community standards of the sport and say, look, that's the kind of danger you accept when you come in. If those things don't normally happen, then he's going to have a much harder time saying that he was just playing the game, so to speak.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a hard time saying that's what happens. I mean, clearly we've seen racers standing on the side of a track after they've swerved off, pointing, yelling, and screaming at drivers. But I don't know if we've ever seen a video like this where one car almost misses him, and he still continues forward as if he's trying almost to step in front of him.
Well, right. I think that's going to be a defense that Tony's going to have, because to the extent to which Ward put himself in danger, that's going to be an issue. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things the prosecutors are putting in their head is that going to be a slam dunk defense for Tony Stewart, saying, look, this guy basically jumped into traffic, jumped in front of me. What was I supposed to do?
Now, can they use Tony Stewart's reputation of having road rage? Now, he's interesting because he's got a reputation of being a really charitable guy off of the racetrack. But on the racetrack, every driver out there will tell you, and every NASCAR fan knows, Tony Stewart has a serious case of road rage when he gets out there.
That might play into the psychology of deciding of whether or not to charge him, but that reputation will not be evidence in any criminal case. It could be evidence in a civil case, which I'm almost 100% sure is going to come through, but it won't come into any criminal trial proceedings.
Now, and why can't that come into a criminal trial?
You know, the rules of evidence in criminal cases, you don't really get to bring in someone's reputation. The exception to that is if they bring up the reputation. So if Tony Stewart says, everybody knows I'm the calmest guy on the track and I would never intentionally do that, then they would get to rebut that statement. But the prosecutors shouldn't count on their ability to bring up the fact that Tony Stewart in the past has had road rage or even has a reputation for road rage. That is not acceptable evidence in a criminal trial.
Is there any chance that investigators will be looking into the fact, and it's going to be very, very hard to prove because the only guy who knows what he meant by revving the gas and kind of swerving the back wheel is Tony Stewart. But if there was actual intention to hit him, then I mean, that would be murder, would it not?
Right. If he intended to hit him, then you're talking about a murder charge, probably a third-degree murder charge, but a murder charge nonetheless.
You know, I think that the most likely scenario here is I think Tony Stewart was probably trying to scare him. He was upset and say, hey, I'm a NASCAR driver, kid. Get out of my way. And the kid, who's only 20 years old, is probably hot-headed and he's moving further onto the track. And it was just a nightmare scenario.
I think that's probably right. You can tell from the video, Stewart does do a little swerving, does do a little bit of angling. You can see him speeding up a little bit, probably trying to throw mud on the kid. On the other hand, who knows how angry people get? The problem is going to be for a lawyer. The problem is going to be one of how do you prove one versus the other? Tony comes out and somehow admits, yeah, I was trying to scare him. How do you prove, yeah, you tried to scare him by bumping him and you ended up killing him? You know what I mean? Where do you draw the line on scaring?
Right.
That's going to be a really tough admission for Tony to sort of hide behind. So I think you're going to see a lot more stonewalling and not coming out with any type of explanation just to avoid muddying that very water.
If you're his attorney, I imagine you tell him don't talk to anyone, not even and especially the media.
Correct. Don't talk to anyone. I probably put him on a hiatus from racing for a little while. He was almost going to race the next day, and they decided not to, which I think was a great decision by his lawyers or his team, whoever advised him. You know, the worst thing in the world would have been if he got into another accident or been accused of road rage that day. Then you just have a tainted jury pool because now the spotlight is on him. So, you know, I think that was probably a great point. But, yeah, no talking, no explaining. You know, no explanation is sometimes a lot better than even what seems to be the most benign explanation, just because it can get taken out of context.
Lastly, Mazen Sabeidi with the Steckler Law Firm, I always ask you to put the pull out the crystal ball. What do you think happens in this case?
You know, from what I've seen, I actually don't think he's going to get charged with any criminal charges, but I do think civil suit by Ward's estate.
I agree with you, and
somewhere down the line.
And I think it gets settled.
Yep, absolutely,
right.
And quickly.
In everybody's best interest. Mazen Sabeidi, thank you so much for coming on and bringing us your expertise.
Thanks,
on this.
Grant. Absolutely, Grant. Have a good one.